be clarified because, for whatever reason, people think that there's a bunch of tyrants in Axis 12, which is so far from the truth. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So, but here's the thing. So John was making claims that, what was the exact claim? It was that Axis 12.
I remember saying that Axis 12's creators had an incoherent system. And the reason I thought it had an incoherent system was because I felt that its creators had different beliefs regarding what the system is. And I proved that in this conversation by asking particular questions and getting different answers. Such that, for example, when I asked you if someone can be a DOM that doesn't include their main mode conjunction, you said no, and Nick said technically yes. That I view as a denominational difference.
Nick misspoke then, because I know that Nick wouldn't say that. That makes no sense.
Okay.
You can't lead with a mode conjunction, right? That doesn't have the dominant function.
No, I get that that's your rationale. I get it. And that can be different Nick can think differently at this time. That's fine.
But Nick doesn't think that.
That was my statement at the time.
Nick doesn't think that. Either you misunderstood Nick, or Nick misspoke.
I did not misunderstand.
But here's, okay, so fine, then Nick misspoke, because I'll tell you why. You asked so many fucking questions, eventually someone will misspeak.
It's a misspeak.
He wouldn't say
how that gets misspoken.
I know, don't you think I know the position of my fellow theorists? Like, and yes, there are certain things that we're still working on that are incoherent between each other. Like, in other words, I have ideas about this, they have ideas about it, but it isn't like axiomatic within axiom.
That's fine. And you guys can universally agree at this point in time. But right. It is the case that at that point in time, the statement I had said was, as I remember it, system's incoherent. You ask this guy this, you ask this guy that, you get different answers on things that actually mean things.
As far as like the system being broken. So that part is true or not true as a statement from you, John?
Yeah, it's broken. That's what he said. Yeah.
I don't remember ever saying the system's broken. And I remember in that conversation saying, I don't remember saying that this is broken. Now, perhaps I did it without, just in a fit of rage or something like that. I don't remember saying that. And I remember in that conversation, speaking as I always do, asking the same kind of questions that I am always asking, and getting the same kind of conversation that I'm used to getting. And it was consistent then as to all of those conversations. And John, as far as the data that was communicated in that conversation, it just gave me the same impression as to what I've already been seeing.
Have you ever had a conversation with anyone who disagreed with you, where you left like there was some sort of compromise?
Of course.
Okay, can you think of someone?
Can I think of someone?
Yeah.
All of my family members.
Okay, well, in the whole time that I've known you, I have not seen one instance of that, period.
I'm not here to compromise systems with you. I'm not here to compromise your shit. I'm not here to say, I'm going to disagree with you on this matter and we can just disagree and that's cool. I'm looking at your system and seeing what it is.
John, how long have you studied typology for?
Maybe the past 3 years or so.
Okay, so 3 years. So I could just equally say that, well, like other socionists who have studied socionics for a few years, right? Think they're experts. But here's the thing, John. Have you read Young?
I have not read Young. No.
Okay. That creates a bit of a pickle for you, doesn't it?
No, it really doesn't.
Okay, so first actually, not only are you green, right, wet behind the ears, everything, whatever, right? But you've not even given Big Daddy, not me, the other one.
Oh, Daddy.
The time of day.
Oh, Daddy.
Daddy CJ. The other Daddy CJ.
Yeah.
It took you a while. Come on, man.
It took me a while.
Thought you were sharper.
I didn't know you were talking about Young.
You better sharpen your tool, man.
Oh.
Get that thing used.
Mm-hmm. No, actually, Peter's right here, because it's not a matter of like, oh, my intellectual dick that I'm stroking. This isn't proper Jung. I'm just looking at the theory in its space. It's not really tainted in that matter. There's no bias. I'm doing the same thing when I'm looking at socionics and comparing it to Axis. All I'm doing is looking at it and going, hey, for these two things to simultaneously coexist, these things can't be allowed, these things can be allowed.
But you
If
don't
you're going to do
you don't
this,
even
they can't
understand the
exist
underlying,
simultaneously.
John, you don't understand the underlying framework. You don't even understand the axioms. I can
No,
prove it right
it
now.
really it that does not matter in that particular conversation.
Oh, yes, it
As
does.
though I don't understand the underlying framework anyways. This is just I don't need to
What do you
read
mean?
the fucking book
What do you
like
mean?
you did to know it and understand it.
Yes, you do.
I
You do.
don't think I do, my friend. I don't think I do.
You don't think you do. But
Why do I?
what do our viewers think? I mean, guys, do you think that John should read Jung? Or do you think like he should just go on, misunderstanding his system of choice, apparently? All right, John, let's put it simply. Let's put it simply, right? So, what is a subject and what is an object?
In the Jungian sense, or in the way that you put functions?
No. I honestly want to just hear it from your own mouth. Like, how would you explain it to, like, say, a child? You do this well. The simplest form. The simplest
I
fucking
would say the subject is any individual person. The object is anything outside of them.
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that. What about rational orientation and a irrational orientation?
Do you mean again in the your system sense, or in the actual verbiage sense?
I think we should just stick to the actual verbiage sense so that you don't feel like it's being, clogged down by, systems and expectations around that shit.
I would say that. So, what was the question again?
Rational, irrational orientation.
Rational and I would say that an orientation towards rationality means that someone has an orientation towards having reason, having reasons.
Paramount, right?
I don't know what you mean by paramount.
Okay, so go on.
I would say
Try to figure this
that
out.
rationality is having
How are you
reason.
trying to explain this to a child?
Rationality is having reasons for a thing. You are explaining a thing in terms of reasons. Irrationality does not care about reasons. It's dealing with what it is looking at. It's sense oriented. It's looking for empirics in that regard.
Experience.
Rationality and rationalism are linked in that sense. Empiricism and irrationality are linked in that sense.
Fine. Is feeling logical?
Is feeling logical? Potentially.
Because why? Why would feeling be logical?
Because someone can have an emotion and they can have a logic behind that emotion.
Okay. But what is the logic behind the emotion? Is it the emotion itself?
Anything. It's not the emotion itself, no. The emotion itself is an experience.
The emotion itself is an experience.
Yeah, an emotion is had. A logic is thought.
A logic is thought. But doesn't that contradict what you just said?
How?
Because feeling is felt.
Yeah, I don't see why that's.
And thinking is thought.
You had it in experience. You felt it.
But they're both rational, right? They're both rational.
You sure?
So the definition of rational is dealing with logic, right?
Sure.
So one's organic and the other's inorganic. Logic.
Sure.
Okay. So there you go. We agree on things.
Cool.
Good. Okay, so now that we have that, we can just equally say, right? We could say, okay, so we can have, say, a judging lead who's oriented towards the object, right?
Sure.
And we can have a judging lead who's oriented towards the subject.
Sure.
And we can have a function of feeling or a function of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there again, we agree.
Okay.
So, like, what is it? Is it the 4 function versus the 8 function?
No, like, what the fuck am I supposed to take out of that?
What do you mean? What are you supposed to take out of
like,
that?
okay, if I'm looking at type,
Mm-hmm.
right, I can look at a lot of systems. And I can see what those systems are saying. I can look at the conceptual data, the idea stuff that's off in space here that the person is thinking and noticing, and you know, all this stuff that this system is saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
The claim is being made by it and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
If I take that stuff of an axis typing, what am I supposed to make of that?
Am I supposed to make something of your typing? Like,
Well,
like
I
what,
mean,
what did you?
not necessarily. I mean, I'm going to take as an individual what I do of it. So you
Right.
can type me in whatever system. You could type me in Enneagram. You could type me in Socionics. You could type me in BB or Kiersey or MBTI, whatever. I can take whatever I'm going to take of it.
Right.
Regardless, it's still a mapping that has, you know, all the stuff that's been mapped about it, all the research that's been done about it, all the data, all the literature, all that shit, right?
Right. Yeah.
And there's something that I can substantively look at and go, no, it's not a question. When someone is saying this thing, it means this thing, whether I know the definition or not. Right? That
Okay.
area is being mapped.
Okay.
When I'm handed that scroll that has the map on it, it's clear what is being mapped in front of me. I think that all that stuff that you said is very nice. What is that mapping? I can look at something like
Mapping over there is
Enneagram.
processing information. That's what it's doing. That's what it's mapping.
Mapping how you're processing information.
Clearly.
Are you saying like where's the mapping coming from, John?
No, I'm saying, like, what is, if I hand you a scroll and that scroll has squiggly lines and islands and waves, and like there are definitely an ocean here and there are definitely islands on that ocean, right? I can look at the map and I can go, wow, this is a great map. This is very detailed. It's very pristine. It's very shiny. You know, it looks great. What is it mapping? You could
It's
say
map.
a lot
Yeah.
of things to that. You could say it's mapping a territory. And I go, oh, okay, great. That's a correct answer. Yes, it's a territory that's being mapped. But I can look at it and go, okay, but like, what territory? You know, like, I don't really know. Like, well,
Yeah, I get what you
islands.
say.
Like, okay, but which islands
Yeah,
specifically? Like, one's in the ocean. Okay, you know, that's a bit more like, but like, which ocean? And oceans are big. Where in the ocean? You know what I mean? Like, where? There are a lot of
yeah. In
parts of
this
the ocean, a lot of
system,
islands.
I
Right.
think your access is. I think what you're saying, like, what is it mapping within typology as far as like the system
Yes.
in and of itself is mapping development.
Which is
Yeah.
why it's very important, I think, to look at other typological systems and say, hey, this one's mapping this one's mapping this one's mapping this. I'm this type in this system, but that's a mapping of this. I'm this
Well,
type in this system, but that's a mapping of this. Now, this other system over here, all right, well, I can see what it says, but I don't necessarily know where the map is in comparison to all the other maps.
well, in this system, you make your own map, right? Because your development is going to be unique. So instead of trying to fit you into a box, instead of going by the rigidity of the grant stack, right, or socionics blocks, we see something different. We see multiple trajectories. We have explanations for that. So now if you look at your map and it's too abstract for you, you simply don't understand the axioms that we're using. I think that
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I can look at the map and say, no, I clearly can see what the fuck is on. That's an island. That's an island.
Yeah.
This is all pretty, like, this is a map like I've seen any other map. Where is it?
Where is it? It's, dude. So you
Like
agree?
the answer that
agree,
Ja just
John,
said there is
John,
cognition.
you agree with the modes that we gave you. You agree with them.
Well,
You said,
sure,
yes, those are the three that I use.
sure.
So
But
there's your map.
I
You
can look at that
disagree
and
with
basically say that
you disagree with what functions we've tacked onto it. You disagree with the order, but you don't disagree with basically the fundamentals we provided you with at all.
well, I have no reason to necessarily disagree with them. There's nothing wrong with them other than that they don't map that much as far as I can see.
Well, how does socionics map more? So, like, how did you come to?
Well, it just so happens to be the case that I don't actually like. I know that you call me a socionics extremist and all that shit, and I'm a socionics guy and all that shit. But like, I'm just dealing with type, and the reality is that I haven't really studied socionics that in depth, and I still just engage with it. I just engage with type. But it is the case that as I read more and more about socionics and people bring up more things about socionics with me, they'll bring up like dichotomies and shit like that. And I'll look at them and be like, oh, hey, that thing that I already noticed about type myself without any literature, they've actually written about that.
Yeah.
That's a really awesome thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I look at your system and go, ugh. Thanks for not telling me very much.
Well, John, I mean, if I had 64 fucking dichotomies, I'm eventually going to hit on some things, right?
Well, sure.
I mean, like, there's an unbelievable amount of dichotomies.
They just so happen to have particular ones that are particularly apt.
Sure. I'm
not here to say that socionics is this great system. I'm here simply to say that I can see what socionics is mapping. I don't, and I can see the claims that it makes, and I can see when people make claims that are larger than they really have, any kind of evidence or any kind of real substance to make those claims with. As if, like, I've been in the jungle, I've seen some shitty fucking typings, and I've seen some shitty fucking theory explanations.
Yeah, but you have been in Axis 12 and you've participated in typings. And the thing is, even you yourself have said that's interaction, that's conducting, that's revision.
Yes, that's great. That's really great that I can look at that thing that you see as blue and go, yes, I also see that that's blue. And have like the kidney patient next to me being like, that is no use to me. I could really use to like this useful thing. I could really use to know about this useful thing. But like that, we agree that this thing is blue. Yeah.
Okay. So how is it not useful to you though?
Well, because like I said, I can really only amount it to like that one communication styles aspect.
But why do you
even then I can't really accurately what?
Yeah. You keep coming back to it. You come back to it. You talk to Dan about it. You've talked to Ja about it. You talk to me about it, etc. So it obviously is interesting enough, despite what you say, that it's on your mind, which means what tells me that you must be seeing it in reality because you're constantly reminded of it. If it was so out there, then
no, the reason that I'm thinking about it is that I'm annoyed that at all the interactions that I've had in here, and that I'm still annoyed that I'm still annoyed that I hadn't been listened to. I'm still annoyed that I went through all those arguments, and the same shit is still playing out over here. I actually do like people around there. I don't particularly like you, but there are people around there that I like.
But that's the thing we can also come to, because it really is a personal thing.
Of course, it's a personal thing.
But the thing is,
I'm not saying that it's not a personal thing.
I've never had anything personal against you.
Oh, please.
John, I used to invite you to the boxing things that we had and etc. Like I always welcomed you into chats. I never tried to shun you away or anything like that. So don't even try to make it sound like that. It was not like that. And the thing is too, if you were to apologize for what you did do, not what you didn't do. What you did do, I would say, hey, if you want to come
What
back
did
and
I
try it
do?
again, I'd let you back in. I don't have something personal against you. Like, I understand, frankly, I understand, like, you're a neurotic fuck. You're a rigid neurotic fuck. Okay. I get come back. If you come back, you apologize. You come back, I'll tell you all about polarization.
Okay.
Okay. And how you can maybe
just for a moment.
yourself.
Just
Okay.
for a moment, so I can ground us back in reality.
No, but John, this way you can actually
Quote,
get something
who
out of
is this
typology.
quote? When I quote this quote, right?
When you quote this
am I
quote,
quoting when I quote this quote? I am 99th percentile neurotic. Who am I quoting when I say that?
probably me.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm neurotic?
Yes. You're definitely
Oh,
neurotic.
bud. Okay.
John, you experience a lot of negative emotion.
Oh, I do, but I'm not
do
99th percentile neurotic.
Does it matter the percentile?
Oh, it matters.
Look, buddy. If you're 75% versus 99%, you got fucking problems.
No.
John. Okay. And
John.
I'm trying to stay fair
Oh, daddy.
here. Okay?
Oh, daddy.
But John, think about this, okay? Your self-assessments are
Oh,
historically
daddy.
a little bit delusional. Okay.
They're delusional. Why is that?
Enneagram 4, you're clearly an Enneagram 1. Okay. Like, it's just
I definitely have a lot of one fix, yeah.
one fix. No, you need to fix your Enneagram type because you got it fucking wrong. Okay.
Oh, you gotta fix your Enneagram type because you got it wrong. You got it wrong. Oh, you got it wrong. You got it wrong.
I'm like, the grand stack could suck my dick. That's what I was thinking the whole time. But like, okay. And by the way, John, why is your fucking shirt glow in the dark? Dan, does it glow in the dark, or am I?
No, it's pretty neon. I think he got that like that
Oh my
that
god.
PM running shirt, right, John?
No, it's just a really like highlighter yellow, highlighter green t-shirt.
Yeah.
Wait, John, are you colorblind too? You're type blind, colorblind. Just kidding. Yeah, Dan, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So would you agree, Jay, that there's a standard at your cognitive
There you go,
function?
DJ. Get some of that hair. There you go.
Jesus fucking Christ, man. It looks like a fucking rug.
You're no different. Look at you.
Yeah, that's true. Look at Come get it. Come get it, Johnny boy. Okay,
Oh, daddy. Oh, you're so big. You're so strong, Jay.
Yo, Dan, you got to continue before this gets really gay really quick. Yeah. And by the way, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's too gay. It's making me uncomfortable.
Yeah, go ahead.
From my perspective of like the zones being what they are, it pretty much treats, as you call it, a standard development, and there you go. You call it standard for a reason, as far as I can tell. I don't know. I don't particularly know why. I'm not saying what is or what should be. I'm just looking at what you're saying and going, okay, that's what you're saying is, that's cool, whatever.
But what most typologies have, just like generally speaking, most people will be either conducting a revision. They will, which is why, and because those are foundational dualities. So you're going to build a system around that. But the problem with building a system around that is that any progression past that point, the system is pretty much obsolete. So,
right, and what makes it obsolete is what you would say. Why is it obsolete?
well, because the way that I see it is that once the third comes up, and if the tension of opposites can get reconciled, well, then you basically have a regeneration of the attitude upon a different basis. So this is something that is highly Jungian. It's not like my original concept. The way in which we can outline how you would get there is the thing that's different. That's something that wasn't covered by Jung. But we've seen it. We've seen that these people who do have this trinity development, or you could say triadic configuration that's integrated. So what it would be is it's actually 3 dyads, right? So gateway connecting two modes, right? It's balanced. You could think of it as, moving, basically like this, for lack of a better way to put it. And
I usually think of it as like two things on either side, and then there's a wheel in the middle.
you could think of it that way because it's the gateway that's essentially in the middle. You could think of it as like it's sort of balancing like this. It's pulling up either mode. So if you have, in order to have two integrated modes, you really need to have three. So you have two integrated modes and a gateway. So a gateway technically isn't a mode. And we made the mistake in the past of calling it a mode, right? But gateway is a gateway. It's connecting. So that's where we've made some clarifications. We've also made clarifications in that people were confused as to, can you lead with cognizance or alignment? That was a big thing in the past, and we've clarified now, or at least we're very close to making a very clear video and settling on it as to what constitutes polarization versus what constitutes a gateway, right? So like that's something that we've all been working on. That when I say we, I mean myself, Ja, Nick, etc., right? The rest of the team, because that's confusing, and also it's really never been clearly defined. Period. Like Jung kind of alluded to it. Marie-Louise von Franz alluded to it, but never really gave much clarification on it. So we have that clarification now, thankfully. And there is a difference. There's a big difference. So I take that responsibility that I caused that confusion inadvertently. So, but that's all going to be remedied this year. Like we'll have probably put out like a 25-minute, 30-minute video on just that, because it would be very interesting.
Yeah, let me ask you, Jay, since we're speaking on clarification, because there are people who have left this in the comments. They said, does Access 12 actually follow anything related to Voltology
Not
anymore?
at all. And this is the thing that keeps coming up too. My type journey started in cognitive type. I have nothing against Voltology. I think that Voltology is quite valid, actually. I don't think it's as valid as they claim it to be, but I do think it has validity. What I've had an issue with is not the Voltology so much. I have some issues with it, but that's not my main gripe. It's with the way they do development. I've always disagreed with it. I disagree with it way back then, and I still disagree with it now. I think the way they do development is completely arbitrary. That's my issue. So to answer that question, because I went a little over, of course, but to answer that question, no, Axis 12 doesn't use any Voltology. Now, we might be biased in a way by Voltology because a lot of us have trained in Voltology, but that's the only thing. I think that, at least that what I could say about myself, I have been sort of like slowly erasing that from my mind as far as that's concerned. Like I don't look at people in terms of like ocular tension and grounded versus suspended and all these different things as far as like what you can actually visually see. I think that I still think it does have some validity. It seems to track pretty well. I think it's like 85% anyway. But the second someone has something fucked up about them, it begins to fall apart really quick. And what I mean by fucked up about them is if they have a brain injury, if they have a drug addiction or are on drugs, if they have like some sort of movement disorder, if they have some speech thing. I mean, there's just like so many different things that could affect it. Cultural programming can also affect it too. Like there's a lot of things to consider. And I know that they have found ways to get around it that way, but I still would rather not use Voltology in my typing. I don't think we need it. I think that the better way to look at it is through the way that we assess, which is the compound mode architecture, tension of opposites, etc. You get more out of it. Sending someone with a report about how they move is kind of what that may or may not indicate, which they can't prove and they don't try to prove beyond what you can actually observe. They don't follow up psychologically. I think it's too shallow. So I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways.
I'm probably gonna invite DJ in here if you guys are finished.
Okay, you get him in here.
All right.
You're just gonna try to keep us on track, probably. That's what's going on. He's probably bored.
It might be it though, as far
You
as
know what though, Dan? I'm gonna introduce him though, guys. Okay, so the person who's coming in here, he is the Axis package handler. That's his official role. So yeah. And he's also the World Socionic Society ambassador too. So DJ, I'm sorry ahead of time, man, for embarrassing you.
He's the package handler.
Yes, he's a package handler. Don't ask him about it. Don't ask him publicly about this. You have to DM him about this.
DJ is excellent at his job. I've heard him on the job before. He's
DJ,
a very hardworking man.
Dude, why do you think he's our fucking package handler? He has proved himself in the field.
Maybe he could handle this package. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. That package might be a little bit too heavy, man.
It's too small to handle.
Yeah,
it's elusive.
Yeah, too small. Oh my god.
See, don't you miss me, fucker?
Oh my god. There he is, the package.
Bro.
Hey, baby. How you doing?
DJ,
What up, bro?
Like Tyson Fury, man. Just anyways, go. Let's see what you're wearing, man. Come on, let's see that shit. The fuck is that? The hell is that shit, man?
Yeah.
It's got like, I don't care. That's my drip,
You got fucking roses on it. What is that?
No, yeah, I
Cherries?
got some. They're bugs. I don't know.
They're
$7.99 at Macy's, dog. Hey, we gotta do what we gotta do, big dog. I mean, the economy is not booming, so we gotta.
Fucking garden camouflage.
Dude, this is light skin drip, bro. Like, chill.
Where are you, dude?
I'm in my garage. Dude, always hold on. These sprites are going everywhere. This is more important. You said the World Socionics ambassador.
You are, man. That's you. Sorry.
That's so false.
You speak
Petty.
Russian,
It's
John?
petty, isn't it?
That so is. Absolutely. Like, if anyone just says anything about Socionics, you're like, this dude is literally like, he just sits outside of Jack's house and is like, tell me about SLE. Like who's doing that?
You're doing that.
Am I? That's amazing. That's interesting.
Oh. Too bad we can't put Jack in here.
You probably
Anyways,
could.
we got to stay on track because our viewers are going to get bored and they're going to get more bitter towards Daddy.
Yeah, these just sound like it's just a bunch of like ad hominem like personal gripes. We need to get down to the nuts and bolts.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get down to the actual issues. Like,
what you got?
We're going to get down, John. We're going to get down to the nuts.
Oh shit!
That's some
Watch
serious
out!
shit,
Gay
bro.
joking
That's some
coming.
serious
Oh, watch out!
oh, weak.
Okay, DJ, before you put that in your mouth, ask us some questions.
What? So it sounds like John. So you're saying that your main gripe with axis is that it's ambiguous or it's kind of abstract? Or, is that the main thing that you're hitting at? Like, I want to know what's the biggest thing that annoys you? Like, if you could narrow it down to one word, what would it be?
Astrology.
Okay. And could you elaborate? It's
Yes.
just arbitrary.
Because
Is that
I think that Jay speaks as though he can explain a lot of things, but I think that he only observes I think he only observes enough data to have a real scientific approach towards only a few things, and those things that I think he does have the substance to actually approach. I'm fine with him. Um, I'm fine with him approaching. It's like the whole cognitive landscape thing, as they put it. I just feel like they don't really have anything to really prove that other than belief.
what would look like proof? Like case studies where you actually we have 40 people and we could actually project certain, like we can actually see concretely the development over time. Like what would that look like for them to prove it by your standards?
I mean, I would think that like I mean, this is kind of out of the resources, but I mean, the thing that would really suggest it would be some kind of brain mapping technology, which he's talked about before. That's way out there, and that's money. That's us here too. But like at least in the typological front, because it's a typology like every other typology. I'd at least like to see the development aspect of it. I'd like to see the examination of people from youth. I'd like to see, if especially early youth, I'd like to see that thing actually developing over time before actual claims are made. And especially if we're getting.
Shouldn't socionics have to prove all 8 functions exist in an individual then before they're taken seriously?
Well,
why?
It's also,
Why?
And it's also
for the same fucking reason.
You have the same component bits as they do. You define it differently.
The same thing. We're not saying the same thing.
Well,
it's like
different. They're different claims.
Supercomputer.
Your claim is more in the evidentialist kind of view, in the sense that your system actually would warrant more. You could actually, in a sense, prove development, whereas socionics isn't. That's not the foundation that they're arguing from. They're more of a logical coherence, and the way that you would prove it is if it's actually mapping to reality, in the sense that the theory itself is demonstrating the truthfulness within it by people actually valuing the elements in the way they do, and using the information in their respective functioning. So if anything, the proof would be more on Jay's system in a sense, because it's something that's actually seems to be more about the actual
psyche development.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't even know how you would actually concretely show that, in a sense. And that's why, at least for me, I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say that I don't use socionics. I do use socionics. I'm not like a socionics advocate. Like, I have pictures of Jack in my bedroom, and I touch his face
You don't?
at night before. Yeah, I
do.
Okay. I was thinking I was gonna buy it. It was on Amazon. It's pretty cheap. But now that you have one, I might order it and get it. Free shipping overnight. But yeah, it's like if Jack says something that's inaccurate according to the system, then I'm not going to agree with him. But what was I getting at with that? I totally lost my train of thought. Yeah, I forget what
you're talking about the nature of the claims being made by socionics and the nature of the claims being made by Axis.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, they're completely different structures, different systems, and different taxonomies. And I think what you have to do is evaluate each system within its own structure, and see whether or not within its own structure does it hold or does it crumble. It doesn't make sense for me to be an OP and look at socionics and say socionics is invalid because SE is actually masculine or feminine. Well, you're presupposing your system to argue another system. So you can't really operate within that. You have to dive into that system and evaluate on its own merits, is it sound or is it not? And that's the question tonight. Is it sound or is it not? It's not whether socionics is right or is OPS right. It's within its own system. Can it be demonstrated and is it consistent? That's the question.
I don't think that that's the question.
Why isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't see any reason why like access can't be demonstrated, like just the bare bones of it, why they can't be demonstrated to be sound. Like it's in the same way that I can look at anyone in the astrological sense and determine like, well, they're more fire, they're a fire type, or they're more water, they're a water type. I think that it's the larger things that are being claimed of it. I'm not challenging like that a TE DOM in Axis is or isn't a TE DOM, and then in comparison to other systems. What I am challenging is that this can actually have like substantive usefulness in comparison to mapping in terms of just the amount of shit that's being mapped.
Right.
I think that Axis fairly well maps this much territory, but I think its curators speak like it maps this much territory and the development of the psyche. Like fucking what are these fucking claims?
So you're coming from the more pragmatic sense that it needs to be does it explain the most? Is it actually useful? I would say though that even assuming and operating on that kind of pragmatic approach, you're almost already holding to whether or not it's sound, because if it wasn't sound at all, obviously you're not going to use it. So that's kind of embedded in the argument. Like, not only is it important that it can actually be practically used and explain to the degree of the claims that are being made, but also that it makes sense. That's with every system, because these things are not like verifiable in the sense of you can go out and, even with the brain testing, that's a completely different way of evaluating these things. That's not off of coherence. That's pure pragmatism.
I'm certainly not making the claim that what they say doesn't make sense. The logic follows if you view it in terms of that logic. All I'm saying is I think that this stuff over here, yeah, sure, there's definite soundness to there. I just all this shit, no, I just don't think it's fucking sound. I think y'all have no idea what you're talking about.
So you just don't find use for it. It's basically what it comes down to.
I find a very particular thing in it to be useful.
Which are the modes? Yeah.
And basically, I think they're like communication styles, basically. Though it's not exactly one-to-one. There are differences.
But the modes are also contingent upon the other aspects of the system. It's not like the modes exist in isolation. So just ripping the modes out of the context of the system seems to be it doesn't follow in my mind to do that, considering the system is predicated upon the modes being contingent upon other elements that the system is related to.
I mean, I can, but the thing is, like, I can get the value of 4 with all sorts of different kinds of math, and I can get there with things that are actual mathematical principles that are hold true to the principles of mathematics and get to 4. I can also do the same or a similar kind of math that does not hold to the principles of mathematics, but still in its own right gets you 4.
Well, yeah, but that's different because numbers are necessary. So that would be a false equivalence.
It's, I'm not saying in a literal sense. Like,
Well, I get what you're saying, but I don't think that really tracks because one is um, already holding to fourness is contingent upon numbers being necessary and other numbers. I don't think it is this. It's not the same thing.
well, it's like I can what any which way I explain that fire is a phenomenon, it's still a phenomenon. So I don't see why it's necessary that I hold all of the principles that made the idea or that are suggested to be the mechanism of the idea to still look at the idea and go, well, I think you got onto something here, but I think you're maybe explaining it wrong or explaining it right. I'm not even saying that there's anything wrong with the way that they explain it. I just think that all the other claims being made about the explanatory mechanism, I just think that they're too fucking much. I don't know whether the axis way of modeling the way that one function goes to the next, or even what the function is wrong or right. I'm just looking at what I think is putting down and if that's useful enough. And like I said, I think that there are particular things that are actually sound.
Right, Jay. What would your response be to what we've been saying?
I mean, my response would be, John sounds like a rational type. He sounds like exactly what we typed him as. And it sounds like whatever.
But this isn't about my type.
Sounds kind of fucked up. That's what it sounds like. My God. Like also we hear about is it ever utility or not? Is it come by to? Is it adhere to this motherfucking structure? Like I mean, like oh my God.
I don't think you said it.
I don't think you said it over again. It's like a fucking TE gangbang, and people still can't tell that's the dominant.
Well,
We're
John,
just a bunch of idiots. This dude wants me to put a brain map on him to prove it to him.
Okay? You talk about that all the time.
Right, but John, look, I could probably prove the modes through that, but here's the thing: I need funding. You know what I mean? Like, do I look like
I just said that, Jay. Really? I just said this would do the thing, and Jay has talked about that before, but that would take money. I just said that.
Oh, well, I don't even think that solves anything. I was
distracted. I was thinking about booty. I was thinking about booty while you guys were talking. I just I tuned back in.
Oh, Daddy, bring it back, Daddy.
No, not your booty. Trust me.
Or your chest hair.
Oh, Daddy, why you gotta lie?
You know I'm gonna make shorts out of that, right, John?
What's that?
I'm gonna make shorts out of that. Daddy, why you gotta lie?
Yeah, feel free.
Well, yeah, okay. So John's saying, "Hey, Jay, I hear all this stuff. I like the modes. I get it. I'm rational. Okay, anyone can see that. Stevie Wonder's clearly able to see this. However, all your other stuff, I don't care for it. What do you say to that?"
So he just likes the modes. He doesn't like the other stuff.
I told you this in the New Year's meeting last year.
The thing is, he doesn't need to care about these
How
things.
The fuck do you remember that?
Because it's so pertinent.
I don't remember a New Year's meeting last year. So it wasn't this year, it was the last year.
It was last year. Last year at the New Year's meeting, I specifically said to you, everything that your system is, throw it out, talk about modes. The modes thing is actually useful and you know it's valid sound. Go ahead and talk about that. Don't make other claims. I said that.
Well, like claims of type, but why? Like, are you suggesting that our classification is wrong, or like we can't do that? Like our theory is unable to appropriately classify people into basically these discrete categories that we know as types.
No, that's great that you can classify people into discrete categories, but can I actually take the things that are said and take them seriously? And then further, can that actually be of use to me?
Well, that's the whole point of learning about the system and seeing if you can.
Oh, right? I know about
you've got modes. Well, no, you haven't, because the other day you were like, you had an issue and you were like bringing up energetics and you didn't even know what that meant.
What do you mean I didn't know what energetics meant?
You were like, oh, well, if you've got JE, if you
What
say
do you
someone
mean?
has JE, does that mean
What do
they
you
don't
mean?
have FE? Right? But that's not what an energetic basically talks about, both FE and TE, but as a commonality, right? This is the macro function. You didn't know that.
Well, I've also said that too. I mean, it does seem though like there's different form, and I will admit that I don't know the system very well. So I can be ripped to shreds. It's fine. But it still seems strange. Like, couldn't you say that the energy of JE is directed to, like what Jay was saying, a biotic form and an abiotic form, because they're distinct. The nature of them they're not the same thing.
Right.
So it seems strange that the energy can go in a domain that's not native to it. I don't see how that, because there are differences in types of JE, obviously FE and TE, and you're doing those in the isolated context of what the macro domain would demand, namely thinking and feeling.
Right.
I mean, that is a fair critique, and again, I don't know the system well enough, but it does seem strange, given that they're different, that you're somehow, if you're doing structuring, it doesn't matter what kind of structuring, it just is JE suffices for the
Yes,
energy.
but this gets into the theory of like the actual discrete functions, if they exist, all these different things, but ultimately it's about the ontology of these functions, whether they work in an axis, etc. Which, we're making these claims that they are and they have this ontology, and so it works in this way and all these different things. That's all part of theory. Every theory, talks about these things. Socionics has its ontology of, this information element and that, it metabolizes in this way,
But it's different
like,
domains. It's not the same thing. When you're doing TE,
I know,
you're doing TE.
yes, I know it's a different day. What I'm saying is that's what a theory is. That's what is talking about, right? Like, it has a concept and it's stating it is as such.
Right, but it's actually logically coherent. It's not coherent to suggest that you're doing FE and TE simultaneously.
No, but that's not the claim. That's not what JE is talking about. It's not saying you're doing both.
No one's saying that, DJ.
Okay,
You
but
misunderstood.
it
We're
does
saying
seem
that
like
they're
there's a
opposites. So in
conflation,
other
though.
words, in a four-function model, you have either this or that, not both.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it
JE is basically the macro functions talk about how, like, this is what FE and TE would have in common as an extroverted judgment function. However, when you talk about the discrete functions, that has its own ontology, and that is connected to, its opposite on an axis. So FE with TI, TE with FI, etc.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems at times though that you guys have said, and I'm not like pitting. I'm not. This is, and again, if I'm wrong, I will recant. I'm not picking sides here. I'm just approaching it the way I would with anything. That when someone is structuring something, it seems like there isn't a differentiation in terms of, like, if someone can structure something, sometimes it seems like you guys will say, well, they can do that just because it's JE, but the content of what they're structuring is distinct. So it's not that they're just because they're JE that they're gonna, that to me doesn't follow. Like when they are structured.
That gets into a thing of like trying to ascertain, okay, which axis is this, right? And so all these different concepts will come together in your analysis of that person. So if we're saying this has this particular ontology, that means, what we're claiming is that it sort of, this is how this person interacts with, social phenomena, for example, right? With the outer world, and this is how they perceive objects and all these different things. That's all tied to what we're stating within the theory. So
I know
yes,
that.
you could have somebody who's doing something that is basically structuring the environment in a broader sense, in a JE sense. However, we can look at distinct details of, like, motivations and what objects they're dealing with in the manner in which they're doing that, and then we can come to some conclusion like, okay, well, this is on this axis based on our criteria.
Right, but why couldn't I just pull Occam's razor and say it's an unnecessary step? Why not just look at the specific of?
Well, you could do that for everything. You could say, well, why necessarily are these functions on an axis? Why do we assume that there are discrete functions, right? You keep doing that, reduce it over and over again, and then you're basically asking us to prove along the way each step, like, okay, this is a thing, a discrete thing, but has anyone proven function so far in any of these systems?
Well, that's irrelevant. No one, that doesn't matter. It's still arbitrary. If I can just go straight to the distinctives and say, I think that adds more clarity to say that I think the energetics in a sense seems arbitrary in the sense that I can just go to the discrete, SE versus SI, so on and so forth, or SE versus NE in terms of PE. I can eliminate the energetic and say, well, how are they doing PE? It doesn't seem necessary to apply it.
Well, but that's the thing. If you know the functions, then you could do that. What the reason why we have energetics is because with our model, with our understanding, we have to obviously build things up. So we start with Jungian, principles, axioms, what he stated to be. So you have perception, P, judgment, J, introversion, extroversion, I and E, and you add them together, you have an introverted perception, and all these different things. They're all talked about in psychological types. We're using the same axioms as he is.
Well, I don't really care what axioms he's using, in the sense that that seems to overcomplicate the process. Like, I don't see that adding clarity when, again, you can just say that they're focusing on concrete perception pertaining to the object or something distinct from themselves, eliminating the subject.
Again, you could.
You make a mistake. You make a mistake when you eliminate it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That happens when, if you do a thorough analysis, right? You could hypothetically do that, and you could have an accurate typing. However, if you're unsure, but you still see that common thread, that's FE and TE has that commonality, which is JE, and you have you don't know the specific details other than what seems to correspond with the description of JE, then you still narrow things down, right? Why would you reject any more information, even though it's helping you?
I mean, I don't know if it would be helping. I think you would be claiming that, but I don't know if that would necessarily help. I could equally say that would make it more difficult, because when people are doing PE, it leaves you with like, well, obviously, yeah, you have a binary, it's either SE or NE, but you could be more specific and jump the process. But when it's just PE, that doesn't add any more clarity. It makes it kind of ambiguous, and you're kind of like, well, we're seeing.
Well, that's more clarity than stating there's no type at all.
Let me handle this. So the thing is, when you understand an energetic level, especially extroverted perception, you understand that it must be oriented towards space, right? So now it could be either literal or it could be associative, right? And that's a really good way to differentiate them too, taking the whole intuition and sensation thing out of it, just looking at it that way. Because once you've discerned that they're PE, it's very clear if it's literal or associative perception. So,
yeah, I hear you.
You get what I mean? So it's like I get where it seems like it's more steps and it's more complicated, but you run the risk of doing something that I'll bring up with Jack, right? When you start to take these out, where you start to say, well, no, the function of intuition is all associated with time, and the function of sensations all in space and stuff like that. Because then when you actually look at it, when you look at the axioms, they start to contradict each other. Actually, they're not really. Yeah, it's just basically you know what I mean. The framework starts to get clunky, in my opinion. But I'd like to bring that up with Jack and whoever else.
Yeah, that would be a different show.
Unless you want to go drag Jack out of the bedroom. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm sure he probably is nice. He's probably toasty-oasty, man. You like it, like, hey, come here, Jack. It's your buddy, the ambassador.
So
I'm just gonna rub the chest.
Herbal tea.
Just rub that chest hair. He'll pop out like a genie.
Yeah. Come on, John. Come on, let's see it, Johnny. Good, Johnny boy.
He's like, oh, today we're talking about LIE.
Daddy, you talk about my hair. You know how insecure I am.
Oh my god.
Daddy, stop it.
Bumbleclot.
You know, Jay, that you are featured in this video. You have every right to delete it if you so choose.
No,
I'm fine.
don't. No, this is good. What
Dude,
do you want to
dude,
delete it?
I am so self-confident that I don't always need to lead.
Yeah.
That
That's how
sounds.
self-confident
I just
like
want to make sure that you're aware that I'm not looking at your system and going, your system wrong, socionics right, which is to say, like, SI not this, SI this, or NI not this, NI this. You understand I'm not doing that, right?
No, I understand you're not doing that.
Okay, good. That's
and
that.
yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
But
Dude.
Jaw wanted to say, what's up?
Oh, no good.
Jaw was asking something to me.
No, because I thought you were gonna say something, but then we're making jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to play a devil's advocate because I do think that things need to be clarified, and that does seem to be one of the I mean, there are certain systems in the type community that are you have to make it approachable to people, otherwise they don't know what you're saying. I mean that and draw clear distinctions. I would say that I get what you're saying with the energetic part. I don't know if I necessarily agree because I feel like I can still find holes in it. Because I don't know, but that's just me.
I do
But
think when you throw out the energetics, though, they necessarily come back as you start to try to figure out the difference between SE and NE. Because when you're looking at those two, you're going to go, okay, well, what are the similarities between these two? And what would you say? Like, what could we say for sure, right? What we would say is, well, they're both perception functions and they're both extroverted functions. And look what we fall back at right there. Well, now they're sharing something that we would call something called extroverted perception. Now, figuring out what that is important because now we can try to figure out the distinctions between the two. Even though those seem to be so apparent, there is something shared between the two.
sure,
Because so
I
so
agree with that.
so the point is you never really can get rid of the energetic level understanding because there is similarities between both extroverted perceptions because they're both perception, they're both extroverted. We classify them the same. You can't get around that. You know
Well,
what I
that's
mean?
fine, but I don't think it's necessary in the sense of what you're always reducing to is a specific
Well,
form. That's the bread and butter, not that it's PE. It might be in a sense you could say necessary in terms of whatever, like it's PE. But the bread and butter is well, these are there are similarities. I'm not denying that.
yeah,
But
neither do we, which is why we don't just use PE. Because if there were no differences, then yeah, we would just be using energetic level shit because it'd be so much easier within the framework of our system. But we do acknowledge there are significant differences enough to make the distinction.
well, sometimes it seems scapegoated though. Sometimes it seems like well, the person's structuring that's just JE. It's like my mind says, what are they structuring? What's the macro thing, that macro element that's what qualitatively distinguishes them from if it's a TE lead from an FE lead. They're
Of
doing
course.
something different.
And I think that's a
And
difference. I think that's a difference between looking at it through a informational element lens and looking at it through the way Axis is looking at it.
it's fair.
Because it's not about the what is being structured. What matters is that there is structuring. That is what matters. The qualia, you could structure it whatever you want. You could be doing it about anything really. The point is that we're looking at JE as structural. I mean that kind of gets into modes as well, because it's really not just JE. You're coming to, there's other elements involved, but I think it's not really about the the isness of like what is it's about the process of what's occurring, not about like literally the contents of the process and the specifics, but like what is the process doing.
Well, if that were the case, then you wouldn't have any distinguishing parts because they would just be one and the same.
But there are distinguishing parts because it's
Yeah.
the
Well, that's my point.
But it's not about the functions only can deal with specific information.
Well, then
There
what
are
would be
aspects of
the
the
difference
information.
between?
It's the
Well,
way
what?
there are aspects in which they are handling the information, which is the distinctions that are made within at the energetic level, which everyone just keeps wanting to roll over, which why no one ever understands this system because people just keep saying it doesn't matter, and don't want to listen to us talk about the foundational elements of even all the other systems now, which
Right.
sociologists don't want to admit, but all of the dichotomies that we would talk about are used in socionics. So, it's
Yep.
just
But they're more distinguished.
No,
they're
they're not.
they're literally
They have far more dichotomies for the elements and the
if they
functions.
were more
That
distinguished, then everyone in socionics would be understanding what we mean when we talk about energetics, but everyone has a problem with it. So no, they're buried deep within the theory.
Yeah.
no, I don't think that would make. I don't think that follows that. Well, they have far more dichotomies than basically every system.
Right. They do. But
Okay.
how's that not a problem in
course.
of itself?
I'm not saying there's the thing with you're right, DJ, and there's a lot of utility in that, and a lot of things are being measured, and you have a lot of things to compare against each other, and it creates a complex system that's very descriptive. Socionics isn't, it's extremely useful, but it's at a different level. It's at the information element level. It's it's different.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
as Jung said himself, if you were to actually map the psyche in the way that he's doing it, he would need to have many, 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 many dichotomies because it's that complicated.
Why do you need extroverted and introverted and then internal and external?
Because you are a thing and there are other things.
Well,
I know,
yeah,
but I think
It's so really
I get what you guys are saying, and
Why
Young might
would
have said that, John.
personality be that simple?
I don't think
Why
it's
would it
that
be so
simple. Which
simple as
I
to
don't
step
shit.
into
I don't
those
shit on
different-
socionics, man. I think there's a lot
This
of
isn't
utility.
about socionics.
I know, but I'm just saying there's a lot of well, I'm comparing systems because there are differences that apply. So socionics has a lot of distinctions, like you're saying. Young said you need in a personality system. And I think that that is good. But at the same time, the fact that we're talking about the foundational elements and they are just being glossed over as not important, I think that is also a problem. Because so what's happening is Axis is focusing on the foundational elements which are buried in Jung. Those elements also exist within socionics.
hmm
You know, so no matter how you want to cut the pie, they're there. So
But I don't see how people who use socionics are ignoring those foundational elements.
because you don't see the importance in a system that's based just on those foundational elements,
Yeah.
which shows that you don't understand the importance of the foundational elements.
Right. Right. Yeah. And John, you could be alive, right,
No.
and not living at the same time, and that's kind of what they're doing. That's what we're trying to say.
It's like saying that like to understand any kind of material, you must be focusing on only the smallest component materials, only the foundational things. So like if something is an animal, right? And that's made of organ systems, and that's made of organs, and those are made of tissues, and those tissues are made of cells, and those cells are made of organelles, right?
Uh,
I would really need to differentiate all those different things at the higher levels. Why would I be only focusing down on just the component material stuff?
because I think it's ignorant to ignore base level things just because there's more
That's great
utility in
to
the more
ignore it.
apparent, just because there's more utility in more apparent phenomena. I don't, I get what you're saying, but I just don't understand why you don't see these foundation elements as important. Like,
Well, I think it's because you all have a lot of judgments that are associated with the theory that you have, the elements that you have, and there are a lot of like, well, we have this judgment, and that judgment is built off this other judgment, and that judgment is built off this other judgment. So when you actually say something like, well, they don't understand the foundational elements, well, no, they don't understand, or they don't exactly read the Axis Bible.
It's not the Axis. The thing is,
They
though,
read
it's not the
another
Axis.
Bible that
Hold
has
on.
different foundational elements.
It's not the point is, it's not the Axis Bible, because as I've already said, these foundational
Sorry,
elements
the
of
young
typology.
Bible.
Yes,
right?
I know, but they're using socionics too, and that's my point. That these things that we talk about are within every framework that claims to be Jungian, so they are important.
Everyone.
But why would it? Why does it? It doesn't matter that it's Jungian. It's like I can't.
Okay, I don't.
cannot stress this thing
You're
enough.
right.
It
No, you're
doesn't
right.
matter that it's Jungian.
No, John is right. It
He's
doesn't
hung up on
matter
the
that it's
Jungian.
Jungian. You're right though, because in the beginning of this stream, when Jay was just asking you a bunch of questions about dichotomies, and you asked about the clarification, like what distinction, and it mattered, and Jay just said, generally speaking, you agreed with every distinction that we use. So yes, you're right. In a sense, it doesn't even matter that it's Jungian, because these distinctions are understood. You understand the subject-object distinction. You understand the rationally-rational distinction. These are all the things that we focus on here. And at that level, it's a completely different level than what the way in which socionics looks at informational elements. But like I'm saying, like I have to respect the way socionics uses their terms and looks at things, which I do, and I say it all the time. I don't really shit on socionics for that. They have their own structure. But when people look at our system, all of a sudden it's this crazy thing that's like, oh my God, you guys are just focused. It doesn't even make sense. But nobody even really, I think, looks at it to give it the time of day, because if they did and they actually looked at the theory of socionics, which shows me that no one here actually has, because all the language, I've read it myself, all the language is the same: subject, object, rational, irrational, applied to all the information elements. So
Well,
it's
that's
like,
the thing. I don't really understand that. And this is part of the frustration of there's a narrative that goes on like, oh well, to understand this we'd have to explain the subject object, we'd have to explain people just don't know subject object. And I'm looking at it like, I'm pretty sure everyone fucking knows what a subject object is, whether they know it in its actual verbiage, as you guys, this is the correct verbiage to understand subject object, or whether they just kind of bastard know it. Everyone pretty much knows it.
yeah, I agree. Everyone does know it.
Except for Porcupine Jason. He never learned, okay? He never learned it. He never did. You better make this a short, Dan. Okay, Porcupine Jason, me and Nick, we spent 2 hours trying to train him in something obvious, and he still didn't get it at the end. I don't get that shit. Fucking, my head was spinning. My head was spinning. I went around asking strangers downtown about this.
Are we gonna organize a Jay versus Jason debate?
Why not? Yeah, yeah. We can get him in here. We can get Jack. I'd like to get Jack in here.
Dude, I think you actually like socionics. I think it's just living in your head rent free.
Really? All right, guys. Look. I'm not keeping this, man. Okay. Like I'm giving you guys time. I have better things I can do. If you're just gonna break my balls about this shit.
Oh
my God!
What?
You
just said you're gonna destroy. You're gonna destroy Jason in some military tactic combo. Okay. I'm sure you could take it, big dog.
It's okay, baby. It's okay.
Calm down.